Hello and welcome to the Project Good podcast. I'm your host, Annmarie Hylton. Project Good is a social impact podcast interviewing experts and advocates about the pressing problems that we face globally and hearing how they suggest we move forward in the future. The Project Good podcast is brought to you by Project Good Work. The goal of this podcast is to inspire people and organizations to develop a mindset that can move others to positive action regarding the complex social issues facing people and the planet. For August, we're discussing intentional consumerism. For decades, American consumerism was largely defined by abundance: bigger homes, more possessions, frequent shopping, and disposable products. Consumerism in the United States and around the world is entering one of the biggest transformations since the rise of mass retail after World War II. While people are still buying goods, how, why, and what they are buying is changing rapidly because of economic pressure, climate concerns, technology, and shifting cultural values. Today, we're going to explore the cultural shift with Courtney Barriger, an award-winning artist, published author, sustainable fashion designer, and storyteller, exploring the intersection of fashion, psychology, mythology, sustainability, and human consciousness. She's the author of Refashion Workshop, an educational book and creative platform focused on sustainable living, textile awareness, conscious consumerism, and the future of ethical fashion. Through Refashion Workshop, Courtney examines the environmental, psychological, and cultural impact of what we wear, from microplastics and textile waste to identity, storytelling, and consumer behavior in the digital age. Courtney is also the founder of Holding Court, a sustainable luxury fashion brand centered around wearable art, ethical production, and environmentally conscious design. Let's get into the interview. Fast fashion is a business model that rapidly produces inexpensive clothing, copying current runway trends. Retailers use cheap materials and fast manufacturing to put out new styles constantly. The system encourages people to buy new clothes often and throw them away quickly. Today, we're going to discuss some of the side effects of this process with Courtney. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited about this conversation, not only because I like fashion, but of course it affects everyone on the entire planet because we all wear clothing. So, so I think, if anything, the only other things I think that tie people together is food. So the other thing that we have to do. So we all wear clothing and food. So these kind of topics are, universally important. And the great thing about these, you don't have to explain too much about why we need these products. And so before, though, that we dive in and pull this product whole topic apart, I would like to learn a little bit about you and the type of person that you have become because of the field that you have been in. I guess the first thing, let's start about how did you get into the fashion industry?
Yes, the fashion industry. Well, to be honest, I had no intention to ever end up in the fashion industry as as a dreamer. I started out as a writer, and I wanted to be a screenwriter and a book writer. And what ended up happening is I moved to Los Angeles, and I got scouted as a model. So the next thing I was doing, oh my gosh, I'm in all of these different castings, and then I'm working for Sephora, and I'm in People magazine. And what I came to realize was some of the companies I was working for, I couldn't explain in my own mind what was happening behind the scenes. So one of the gigs that I got as a model was to basically, it's a fit model gig, but you end up wearing probably 100 outfits in 1 hour. You're just throwing on clothes, you take a picture, you take it off. You throw on another outfit, you take a picture, you take it off. And at some point during my first day on this job, I couldn't understand not only who the brand was where they got all of these clothes, how they had so many, like thousands and thousands and thousands of designs. And that's when I realized I was working for a fast fashion label, just a white label, fast fashion label. And the clothes were literally falling apart on me as I was putting them on. So I started asking questions. Where is this coming from? Where is it going? And they didn't, even the people I was working with didn't have answers for me. So, and at the same time, I was working for Environment California. It's this, I'm not even sure if they exist anymore, but it's a canvassing group that raises money for people like the Sierra Club, different nonprofits. And I started to ask more questions like, is this, if there's so much junk here, where is it ending up at the end of it? And this is just the very, very, very beginnings of the origin story. I mean, I'm talking about like, I was probably 20 years old at this point. So that was my entry point into the fashion industry, was as a model.
Wow. And that's, and that's amazing that during that time you even saw, I guess you would say, kind of the lack of care, just the fact that things were falling apart as you're even putting them on. And it goes, straight to like, well, we're just here to make money and not, really care about quality even. And, probably even not like if it's going to fit on multiple types of bodies or anything like that. So you couldn't get, I guess, more straightforward in describing why this heightened your concern. And so, I don't know all the things in the fashion industry, but from a consumer side, I obviously see that there is like there's a lot of things, and most of the things that I see are usually mostly foreign made. So I'm making the assumption that lots of things are getting shipped back and forth, and then the materials that are available in some of these countries, usually everybody obviously knows that a lot of stuff gets made in China because they have mass labor because of the population and less regulations and all of those different things. And the other big spot is India for similar reasons. And then I do know that in the U.S. sometimes, and in other places, if it is more of a I guess locally made item, sometimes actually those things can cost more, which is always like leaves me with a question mark. Like it's just like it's here. We don't have to go on a boat or a plane, but it's going to cost us more to make this item here where we are than going abroad to get the same or similar item, which is always the thing that has always kind of baffled me. So I guess my first question is how, I guess, is that I guess, do you see like is the uptick on development of this fast fashion, is it going up, is it going down, or what's the status right now, would you say, in the fashion industry for production?
Oh, the status is bleak. So, 20 years ago when I started in the industry, the next thing that I did along the process, I have a degree in journalism. So when I start to ask questions, I actually pursue answers, and I go pretty hardcore for it. I mean, I started calling, government agencies. I started calling and interviewing specific brands. And my belief when I started this whole project, Refashion Workshop, was that by the time that we would get where we are now in 2026, that this wouldn't be a problem anymore. Much like food, I thought that people would see a gap in the industry and they would fill it. Okay, well, there's toxins in our food and nobody wants to eat pesticides. Okay, and we know there are horrible things that happen to you, hormone disruptors, all the things that cause your body to respond to poisons in your food. So if we've discovered that it's now in our clothing, would we not be responding the same way? And my observation is no, we have not responded. And it's super surprising, but that is just the fact. And some of the problems, I think what I've seen is, Forever 21, okay, that went away. But then the model of Shein and Temu popped up. And what makes them even more dangerous for fast fashion is that what was once at least slightly traceable is no longer traceable whatsoever. We have no idea where these clothing, like where the clothes are coming from, what they're made out of, who is making it. The supply chain is completely in the black. So they're able to do whatever they want to. I mean, even this, cheap clothing has been a part of the system since the 1600s. I mean, when we started working with cotton from India, literally England and France banned cotton. They used to only use wool. They used to only use silk. But they started banning cotton because it was made in India and it was made so cheaply. That same model is 400 years old. So we're still doing it, and we're just finding better ways to create, a smoke screen to hide it. And that's why it's still happening. That's why it's still existing, and it is on the uptick, unfortunately.
Wow. This is surprising to me as well, because I would think that this area, because it is something that we literally use every day, that they would want to take a closer look. It's amazing that they haven't looked at the system a little bit deeper. I guess is it because they're, I hate to be like the evil person here, but is it just because it's we want to stay the same because of money, or that doesn't really have anything to it, or is it just pure laziness?
There, I mean, ultimately, money drives everything, right? So yes, on the fact that it's cheap labor, it's cheap to use. Plastics are, you don't have to wait for a cultivation season. You don't have to buy seeds. It's just a product that is a byproduct of the fossil fuel industry. So it's just sitting around. That's what makes it cheap. But also, some of the regulatory issues are that it is an international problem. And so, I mean, you've seen how the world is today. International courts don't really have any power. So what you're relying on are countries themselves independently to create their own laws, their own certification bodies. And, we actually are seeing that happen. So there's some positive news there. California, for example, just on the state level, created a law 2 years ago where it's just now starting to go into effect, and you have to test your clothing and show what toxins are in there. So because of that law, now Nike, Adidas, and Lululemon are being sued for having, I think it was 40 times the amount of PFAS in their clothes. 40 times.
I think I read an article about that. Especially I remember Lululemon because of course it's popular here,
Yeah.
and I am also in California, and so everybody doing their yoga and their Pilates using the Lululemon, and I know for women. When they're wearing these, it doesn't allow you to your body areas to breathe, and because you have the plastics and the synthetics, and so I know that was causing some people issues. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is the BPAs. It's the BPAs. Sorry, in the plastics, and it's interesting too that we have the big scare about plastic bottles and everyone switched to glass. But you're still wearing hormone disruptors to the gym. And, it's still connected to your body and absorbing through the skin, which is more like a sponge than it is an actual barrier. But yeah, the health story is interesting. Just this year as well, it's been discovered that children's clothing in the U.S. has exceeded federal limits for lead, interestingly enough. And lead is something that's it helps keep dyes brighter. It's an additive. So I think all of these different tests that are being done, like we're finally testing clothing on a massive scale. And that's not something that's been done systematically in the past. So there's hope for sure for the future, especially if California is doing this full time. It is, California is sort of normally sets the pulse for everyone else to follow. So there's a lot of hope there, actually.
Now, I guess one of the things, let's talk about how we got here and all the different things that they've been seeing. Obviously, we just talked about the different reports that just came out from the different companies and how people were experiencing hormone disruption, and essentially your clothing sadly is slowly poisoning you. So I guess how did we get to have this need? Because you really don't need, we have 7 days a week, so you want 7 outfits for the week, so you're clean and things, but we really don't need as much as a lot of us have. I guess what was the driving factor would you say for people to start even having this need for all these clothing pieces?
Yeah, in the past, if you owned a woolen coat, that coat would stay with you your entire life. I mean, it would become a part of your identity, your look. It would become like your best friend. And we used to have tailors that would alter it as your body changed, or if you scraped it, or even people that would re-dye it for you. In the past, our clothing took so long to make, just because, even the weaving process was a hand loom and it was hand fed. Really just a few hundred years ago with the Industrial Revolution, with the inventions of the cotton gin, and also the multiple different ways that the loom changed from being a hand loom into being a machine loom, suddenly we just had a ton of more fabrics. And even 100 years ago, this wasn't necessarily a bad thing because we were still using natural fibers. We were still using, our flax, our linen, the top 5 fibers, leather, wool, linen, cotton, and silk. We were still using the big 5. So it wasn't really until really this last century that turning plastic into a fiber and that becoming the new normal, that consumerism started to amplify. Because now we had the ability to make a ton of new stuff, and very, very quickly, and very, very affordably. So, the history of humanity is so different than what we're living right now. Like this age right now is literally unimaginable for the history of humanity. And to change that is going to be very, very difficult. Because it's sort of like what you were saying when we first jumped on the phone, there's more cell phones now than there are people, which means that the whole world is starting to mirror consumerism as it's being shown to us on the phone. And that puts us in a really difficult place because we don't really know how to break down plastic on a mass scale. We don't really know what to do with all the trash that we're creating with mass consumerism. So, it's a bad idea. It doesn't work for the actual health of the planet and for the actual health of people. And now we have to come up with solutions. And it's either going to be, how do we incinerate this? How do we grow mushrooms on it? Or we have to hopefully provoke a cultural change, which is a little bit more difficult than even, dealing with the trash itself.
Yes, I think many years ago, I remember looking at I think it was a National Geographic article that they have, and I'm sure you're very familiar how they have the clothing deserts. Like I think one of the biggest ones is in Chile, and it's just
Mhm.
like tons of like old clothes are just put out in the middle of the desert to rot, but they're not really rotting because of the fact that they are synthetic. And I guess that is just, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because it kind of mirrors, I guess, how we're treating this issue, and as well as people. Like, okay, well, we'll put it out in the desert and hope nobody finds out.
Oh my gosh, right? So are we going to bury the
Essentially,
body?
yeah. Right, right. Because nobody would have even known that there's this like massive clothing desert, because it's not like everybody's like, oh, it's Saturday, let's go out in the middle of nowhere in Chile in the desert, right? And so it's like this hidden a secret that then becomes discovered, and it's the same thing by not, because I'm not even sure unless people take a really deep dive. And I think we have the luxury probably of living in California, which is tries to be more of a conscious state than maybe the rest of the like 49. Okay, maybe Hawaii, but but everybody else is just like we're here to get our stuff done, and let's not get too think too deep. That's what I'll just say that. But so we have like, so you won't even know unless you take it on yourself, that this is existing, and that the stuff is slowly working against you, and in some cases causing so much health issues. And you think that maybe it's the stress, maybe it's because you need to eat less chocolate, but really it's your clothing adding to this. And so it's, I guess if I have to say, since we're talking about, it's dirty.
Oh,
Right?
oh,
Um, and so how do we get, I don't know, I almost feel like there would be like, if more people started thinking about it, that there's going to be an uprising. But I don't know if it can really be a true uprising, because we have, the US is one place, but then unfortunately we have other regions, like we have South America, and we have Africa, right? And so they may not be able to, fight back as strong because of economics,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
And so I know that's a big question and big problem that I'm presenting to you. But how do we get to have like start a global like pushback?
Yeah, right. I guess the way that I've imagined it, and I have, this is the way I sort of see it. It's two things. One, you kind of have to scare people to wake them up. Like, hey, this is hurting you. Do you want to see how it's hurting you? Do you want to see how many people are hurting? And sometimes, it goes back to, I mean, and I've been in this industry for now over 10 years, trying to make a shift just with education. And I used to talk about the environment all the time. Oh no, it's 10% of global carbon emissions. Oh, it's more, the fashion industry puts more out there, in the way of carbon than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. But ultimately, what people care about at the end of the day is themselves and their family and how it's affecting them in a personal way. So the conversation is now definitely shifting toward the toxins and your allostatic load and what your body can handle, right? Because maybe you filter your water, maybe your skin is looking a little bit better because you're buying, better cosmetics. but you're still hurting yourself with your clothes. And how do you get that story and that reverence into not just our culture, but everyone else's culture is a very difficult task. So you can scare them. You can I don't want to say the word wake them up because woke is not a fun word anymore, but shake them out of their reverie. Okay, no, this is real. This is having an impact on you. But then there's also the positive way, which I'm really interested in, and I'm pursuing this path more in an experiment right now on my own. But it is to reach into every culture and remind them of where, at some point, a story about your clothing and its relevance and its reverence already exists. Most cultures in the world have myths and fairy tales, and you would be shocked that every continent and every region has one that ties to your clothing. So I'm interested in maybe bringing back some of these old myths, having conversations with people about, regionally, okay, so we're up in Norway, and we can talk about the tree of life and the Norns and how they used to sit at the bottom of the tree of life and sow into existence the past, the present, and the future. And that is Norse mythology, and it is the fabric of time, and it's beautiful. Or even, the Navajo have their Spider Woman, and she has a loom that's the metaphor of creation as well. The Egyptians have Neith, and the Japanese have their own as well. So it's interesting to kind of maybe pull back in time and see if we can invigorate conversations based on myths as well. So I really do believe that stories have more power than we give them or we remember, So they could be childhood stories or news stories about culture. I mean, we could even create a new era of stories and myths about our fabrics and the things that we wear that help us slow down and see reality a little bit more. So there's the scare tactic, and then there's the telling of stories. I'm interested in both.
I love the storytelling, and I love the creativity that you've used, and the I would say I guess it's going to sound weird, but embedding the better method through their subconscious. They're not even knowing, essentially, that, this pushes them to want to do it because it starts to live in their subconscious through the story. And especially going back into a story that is part of, each person's cultural identity. Because as you probably 100% know, that clothing historically used to be symbolic of where you stood in the society, was tied to your family lineage, and then to your greater, maybe cultural tribe or country or region that you were part of. And so, it used to be that you'd be like, oh, you could be like, that's a Roman, right? Because you could see, like, okay, they're in the Roman gear, so you knew that they were tied to Rome somehow, right? And so your clothing used to be your identifier.
Yeah. Or that's a priest, or we still have it.
So I love it, because then you're going back to identity, which I believe also, as if I'm going to take it to kind of a next level, identity and consumerism are tightly tied together, right? Because when people tend to be have an insecurity, right? They want to have the way to prove, and one of the ways that people prove things in society is that they showcase themselves with items. And so and sometimes, in some cases, the people that go maybe overboard, are suffering from an identity crisis, which then is, I guess you would say, almost the one of the themes of the current times that we are in, right? And what I mean by that is people don't know where they're going, who they are, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man, what it means to be part of this society, that society, and part of this culture and that culture. People are just in a kind of like, I don't know anymore. And they're just like, I'll make it what it is myself. And it used to be that you had strong identifiers of what that meant. And now all of these lines are being questioned and bent. And so one of the ways that people are expressing that is sometimes through their clothing, right? So I think the way that you have chosen to bring back older stories and bring them back into modern times will wake up people in in a subconscious level back to themselves. So hopefully that wasn't too far-fetched.
No. I love it. And it's interesting too what you say about, clothing as an identifier. You can go all of the way to the edges of West Papua and people are wearing Nike t-shirts and jeans and sneakers. I mean, you're right. The cultural identifiers that we once had that tied us to our histories are sort of just being wiped out with, like, oddly enough, military clothes. Like, the t-shirt was invented by the Navy, the US Navy, as a uniform. And jeans were invented for the miners in California. So these are like utilitarian clothes that everyone in the world is wearing, and it's sort of wiped out their histories. So there's reaching into the past and re-identifying with your cultural past. And then there's also, who are we becoming? And do you want to identify with this race to have more things and try and surround yourself with more things so that you feel that insulation between you and your insecurity? Because ultimately you are right about that. The fashion industry specifically is going straight for your insecurities with how many seasons are like, there aren't even seasonal clothing anymore. Like, you can literally buy until you don't have money anymore and you still won't know who you are. Your closet itself can be something that you build as your identity, especially if you're identifying as somebody who cares about what they wear, who cares about their environment, who cares about how their clothes affect their body and their children's bodies. So, I mean, even having the desire to only choose brands that have been tested for chemicals and they're chemical free and it's not going to hurt you, that in itself is an identity right there. It's an identity as a steward of the planet. It's an identity as someone who's devoted to the wellness of their own bodies. So that's something positive to think about too.
Yes, no, I think that's, and that is something, I guess you could say it's a form of activism that people can take individually today and start looking at their clothing a little bit differently, that it's bringing you essentially back to yourself by choosing clothing that is, natural and healthier and, made for, I would say, human use. Yeah, I like that, because that opens people back up to, like, if you're, kind of trying to figure out, like, what's my clothing saying about me, and then also what is it doing to me. So yeah, I think that is perfect. And so what are some other habits you think that people can take on or adopt to becoming more intentional consumers?
Yeah, well, The first one is read the label. You read the label on everything you put in our bodies, and you don't really think to read the label on what you put on it. So, that's just one intentional step, is before you buy something, read the label. But also, to kind of slow yourself down. I think of it as minding the gap. Like, you go to England, and it's like at all the train stations, at the subway, it says mind the gap. Well, before you buy something, just, I know Amazon is there. Everything is just a touch of the button away. Can you try to put even 2 days between that impulse purchase that you want? Because those 2 days, that impulse purchase is going to light up your brain with serotonin. It's going to feel like, oh, it feels so good. And that rush is going to go away so much faster than you would ever imagine, if this is the way that you're acting on it, is an impulse. If you wait 2 days and you think, do I need this? Does this replace something that's falling apart? Where am I actually going to wear it? And if I'm going to wear it, can I wear it to multiple things? Will this live with me with intention? And you wait 2 days. When you see it again, you may think differently. Oh, actually, you know what? I have something similar, or my friend has something similar. I can borrow it from them. We don't need to have so much stuff. Like, my God, what do we do with it all?
Yes. Yes, people even get storage units these days.
Yeah, we're all becoming hoarders and pack rats. It's just like, it's not the way.
This is true. And so, I would say, I guess you would say, that society needs to go on a deep cleanse, as I would say. So how can, from a business standpoint, because, people are getting these clothes from different brands and companies and things like that. What do these businesses need to start, I guess, looking at the mirror of themselves? Like, what things should the businesses be doing that they aren't doing now?
Yes. Well, there's a lot to go over here, but I think the number one thing that a business operating in apparel, but even operating in any capacity, could do is, when you're buying the raw material that you're going to work with, look for a third-party certification just to make sure that it's clean from any toxins, so that at least from the very start, no matter what you're doing, what you're putting out there isn't going to hurt anyone. And be wary, be aware of your supply chain. Don't just hire someone to come in and do it for you. Like, ask the questions, show up for every part of the role, and even show up for how it's going to disintegrate. Look at the full life cycle. This is what the future of sustainability is the circularity of its life. So if you're going to create something new, from now on, that's the way you should be thinking about your product. And then secondarily, as you market it, try and make things that last. If it's not just consumable and something that you're going to throw away, like, we need to be creating things that last again.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. I actually was just having this conversation a couple days ago with someone, because they were telling me they were tired of buying something over and over again, because they said I didn't used to buy this all the time, like this item all the time. And I said, yes, they actually make things to break down nowadays, so that you have to go and purchase yet another one. And
oh my gosh.
and before you could keep it for years, and you could actually pass it to your child, or or someone, and they could have it then for some more time. But it doesn't work that way anymore.
It's interesting, because I would even pay more for something I know is going to last longer, and that is the gap that businesses aren't seeing. That's what they're missing, is that you don't have to continuously make cheap things so that they buy, because they break and they buy it again, they break, they buy it again. Make one thing that's nice and charge a little bit more, and your profit margin stays the same.
Yes. The other thing, I'm sure this is going on a different topic, but I'm sure you saw on, and it was already, I guess, if you were an insider in the industry, you already knew about it. But some of the luxury brands, are actually, made fairly cheaply, and they were having, like I don't think it was Louis Vuitton, but one of these brands. And so then once people found about like how cheaply it was being made, and and just they just stamped the name on the brand, then people were like, they didn't want to have a brand name anymore. And so just looking at, I guess, for people having things like their Louis Vuitton bag, and most of the time if people have lots of them, they want to like showcase that, not understanding that I always say true luxury is when nobody knows what your brand is because it's just for you. That's how I think, right? Like that's how, like, a hidden label, like, it's, don't worry, it's not for you. that's how I like to think. But I know a lot of people like to showcase the, like, it's I paid $3,000 for this wallet, right? I don't have $3,000 in it, but I paid the $3,000 for the wallet, right? And so I guess how then, to me, that not only from the manufacturing part, but then also from the consumer part, how do we break that that cycle? Because it is a cycle. And what I mean by that is, like, the consumer thinks that they need to have this for their personal status. And then the manufacturer's like, okay, yeah, I'll just, make it cheaply over here in India. We stamp it, we send it to you, give me the 3,000. How do we break that cycle?
Oof, that's a difficult one, because that mentality, again, comes from insecurity, right? So this is, again, like, this might be about education. If if everyone knew how cheap it was to make the bags, I don't know if they would be so proud to be wearing it. That, there is evidence, like, again, 400 years ago, when certain fabrics were so rare that only the wealthy could afford them, and wearing it was a status, what am I trying to say?
A status symbol. Mm-hmm.
Yes, status symbol. But now that doesn't exist anymore. This literally is not a model of manufacturing anymore. So I think part of it would be education. But I think also there is the quiet luxury, which is on the rise, which I also prefer too. It's not so blingy. It's not so name brand driven. Everything about luxury fashion is its own ecosystem. So a lot of people aren't aware that those major houses are almost all owned by the same company, Lensing, and they have a formula that they follow. The fashion weeks in Milan, London, Paris, New York, and even the fashion weeks themselves are basically a Lensing company. So when you buy into, like, one of these luxury brands, you're just buying their ecosystem. It's not actually more valuable. It's like a Hollywood production, but it's in-house. So all of that is just a kind of, I think once you realize what that is, it doesn't become as valuable anymore. Unless that's really, really your thing. Like, if you're really, really into the runway culture, then, good for you. That's your thing. However, it's not actually intrinsically more valuable.
Yes. And I think if a lot of people realize that, because, obviously they don't market that way because nobody would be buying it then.
Yeah.
But yes, I think if a lot of people really understood that, then it would probably curb their consumerism by a lot. Because people would probably be going just to like, okay, I'm just looking for, let me just go for convenience, easy, is it a shirt? Great. And is it pants? I'm done. and nobody probably would care. They'd be like, I have some clothing on. And so, yes, I guess, for people really looking at that, I think that would help curb consumerism. And then obviously now we have a upcoming generation, young people, young children, that are going to be, in my opinion, facing a whole different type of world than we know, even now and in the past. And I think they're going to have to think differently in this area. So I guess if you were going to give advice for how, I guess, families and parents should kind of direct their children around consumerism, especially knowing that that we are looking at, climate crisis, and, an uncertain future. I guess, what are some messages that families should be saying to their children? You can just give me one or two, to prepare young people.
Yeah, I think that young people, I remember myself when I was a child and I did not understand where things came from. No one ever explained that to me. You know what I mean? Like, oh, look at this lovely set of dishes. Where did this come from? Like, someone made this. So I think that informing your kids at a young age about the makers, about factories, and about landfills, just even telling them at a very young age how they themselves contribute in the world, that everything they touch and buy and that, that the parents buy also has a chain reaction. That's a good start. I think it would be incredibly important to teach children how things are made, where things are made, the complete life cycle of everyday objects in their home, even just as a game. Like, hey, where do you think this cup was made? How do you think this cell phone was made? How many people do you think it took to make this cell phone? So just maybe playing games with them, asking questions, and educating them on where things end up. I remember seeing a landfill when I was a kid and having all sorts of questions like, oh, like, what is that blue flame? And, why is it covered in grass? And like, what goes in the landfill? And what's the difference between these like car lots where we get to pull things off of cars and yet like all this goes to the landfill, and recycling. So yeah, I think it comes down to spending time with your kids and telling them about consumerism and products and even marketing. This is being marketed to you. Like, it makes you think you want it, but you probably don't.
And actually, that's extremely important for the future, I think, as we're going into this, like, I'll just call it the age of AI, because, in my opinion, and I don't think I'm too far off, it's only going to get, AI is going to be like the new marketer to you. And it's going to, not only learn everything that you've been on your computer, what you've been doing, but it's going to put all the pieces together, like what you're doing off of the computer, because people are taking pictures, obviously, on their social media. They'll find out, records. I'm not trying to make it sound like D-Day, but unfortunately, I think that's where we're going, right? And it would only make sense because it would be the ultimate marketing tool, because it could be and I believe this is how it's going to be pitched, is going to be like, well, we make it custom for you, and everybody loves that word custom. And so that's what's going to be done. And so I think that is the perfect approach, that children need to know that, this is being intentionally done to them. It's not just, popping up randomly. So yes, I think that's the perfect approach. And so one of the other things that's coming up, especially next month in September. They're going to be having the New York Climate Week. So in New York Climate Week, they're going to be having a lot of, top executives and companies talking about, how do we, work on this climate change issue. And then there's going to be all these other issues, and fashion is one of the things that gets discussed at that event. And so, what would you say to, I guess, an audience, or maybe even I guess the world, on how we can make a conscious level of looking at fashion, just even from not only just a consumer standpoint, but how it's going to affect us from a climate change level. Like, you can just name one thing that you think is that they need to really probably focus on at that event, if you were going to give them advice.
I would say that the future of fashion is going to be going toward innovative fabrics. So just as the fossil fuel industry gives us the polyester, that we use, it's a byproduct of gasoline, right? So we could be looking at other places to make fabrics from. Like, for example, coconut husks or banana fibers. We eat a ton of bananas, right? And it sounds ridiculous, but there's leftover crops that we're not using. There's so much bioavailable mass out there. Sargassum, for example, there's an insane amount of sargassum in the sea right now. It's ruining the beaches here. I'm in Tulum, and we could maybe be making things out of it. So my quest would be, what's next? We can make a blacklist of what we don't want to use, and then that leaves a lot open to what we can use. And if crops are failing because we can't use pesticides, well, what crops hold up? Hemp holds up. It has properties that naturally deter pests. So I think we don't have to reinvent the entire system. We just have to reinvent what we're using and make sure that it biodegrades back into the earth, and make sure that we can make it with the least amount of chemicals, if no chemicals at all. We've been doing this for millennia as humans. So let's look into innovation, since we're all so excited about it.
Fantastic. And speaking of innovation, one of the things we haven't touched on is your company, Holding Court. So when let's talk about the company that you founded and your fashion brand. What inspired you to create this brand in the first place?
Yeah, well, after all of those fun years in the modeling industry, I won a reality TV show in LA. And the prize was my own clothing line. And here I was, after seeing all of this junk out there, given an opportunity to start something of my own. And I decided to, take that vision and make it slow, real fashion. So Holding Court, the approach is that it is made for you. It's made to order. It's not, I wouldn't say custom, because I'm an artist. I have the vision, the design, but nothing moves until you press the order. So there's no dead stock waiting around somewhere. And then, of course, everything along the lines is third-party verified. So Ecotex certified, no toxins, no chemical toxins. And I do work with natural fibers. I do have a swimsuit line that I'm going to be switching out the fibers for. Right now I'm using like ocean recovered plastics that have been tested for BPAs. I'm still not loving it after the more I've educated myself over the years, but I have a ton of fabric that I'm not going to throw away, so I'm going to use that. And then move toward maybe working with someone here in Mexico to invent something new. I'm curious. I want to see, like, it's like I said, hey, New York Climate Week, let's work on new fabrics. And I'm working with some guys here to check into what we can make out of all sorts of stuff. So that's the future of Holding Court. And interestingly enough, some of the things happening in the brand, if you were to order it and it didn't fit you, you can send it back. And I do have a different boutiques that I work with, for wholesale here. So it doesn't just get thrown away and you don't get stuck with something you don't love, of course. And yeah, I have different divisions in the brand too. So like there's the clothing. Refashion Workshop is the educational hub where you can go to for free podcasts. I interview everyone, like cute celebrities like Adrian Grenier or, National Geographic explorers who, live part-time in Tibet and, work only with a special silk that's made by, these moths that, they don't actually kill. So there's all sorts of stories on there and books as well. Simon and Schuster's my distributor for the book Refashion Workshop. And then there's also my storytelling division, which I'm building out right now too. So that's in the form of an animated feature film that's in pre-production right now. And some kid stories. So yeah, that's this little universe that I've been working on for over a decade that it's grown some legs. So I hope that you go to holdingcourtinc.com and just check it out. No pressure to select anything, just go browsing. It's fun. It's a fun little universe I've made.
Yes, I checked it out. I'm in love with all the different robes and things like that. So I checked that out, and I like your swimwear as well. So beautiful stuff. And it's fun. And now that I even know a little bit more about how you came up on adding the mythology end, it inspires me even more to share it with a lot of my friends that I think that will think that's very interesting, because that was one of the questions I was looking forward to asking you, because I was like, how did she get into mythology? I was trying to put all the pieces together because I was like, But
that's
now,
a jump.
yes, yeah, no, you're right. That's what I was thinking. I was like, well, I don't know, everybody has their things. And so now I understand how all the pieces are, fitting together to tell a story that, has the ability to, I guess, multi-piece touch for someone to understand the reason why we need to think about fashion differently. So, yes. And then my, I guess, last question to you, and hopefully this one is a fun one and easy. What does doing good mean to you?
Doing good to me is, it's like three things. It is, I think it's like, it's what you give, it's what you take, and it's your identity. So what can you give forward if you're going to be doing good in the way that you're giving forward? So how do you build your community? Can you build your community around the ideas of sustainability? Can you build your community around, quitting consumerism and loving what you have, or even just being like a crafting community, right? And then what you take would be, am I able to, or let's say, am I able to take from the environment only things that are good for my body? And then I think story would be, how do I identify myself? And if I identify myself as a steward of the planet, how would this person act in integrity? And then I think it feeds back into what I give and what I take. So yeah, that's how I determine what doing good is.
I love it. Thank you, Courtney, for your time and insight. To find out more about Courtney and her brand and work, go to holdingcourtinc.com. If you have a passion for an unserved community, a social justice problem, or want to change minds, contact Project Good Work at projectgood.work to start your project of change today. Subscribe to our mailing list at projectgood.work/subscribe to get our episodes and blog articles sent to you each month. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Project Good, where we're focused on what matters.